Hello and welcome back to my channel. You may have noticed, the more astute amongst you, that I didn't do what I watched last week. I did, but there was so precious little on it that, I think I watched 2 movies. I decided to keep the 2 weeks forward together. So I'm recording it again today with last week in February and first week in March on there for you. So I'll not waffle anymore. Let's get the old screen recorder on. Okay, so I think I left off the last time at Space Sweepers and I said that I really wanted to see I Care a Lot. I watched, and I'm clicking on the wrong button, I'm clicking on the wrong button again. I watched I Care a Lot at the beginning of last week, 22nd of February. Now this is one with Peter Dinklage in. Obviously I should say her Rosamund Pike. Now I have heard that people have said she deserves Oscar nominated for this role. I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was very clever. I thought it had a really interesting point. The basic premise of this movie, I don't like to tell you too much, obviously. If you want to know more, you can look into it yourself. Basic premise is that this lady is taking advantage of older people and their money. She basically, people that are maybe confused, and she picks on the wrong person. And this person isn't confused, this person knows exactly what's going on. And this person has got connections that really this lady does not want to have messed with. And it comes to light what's been happening to this lady's family. Peter Dinklage is in this. You'll all know I'm a massive fan if you know me at all. I love to see him getting more meaty roles, more involved roles. Roles that aren't always so sort of like pigeonhole stereotypical. He was great in this, he was really funny. As I say, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a good film. What did I give it? A 3 out of 5. Do I think it's Oscar worthy? No, I don't think we're talking Oscar worthy. So on the 26th, so you can see a 4-day gap between movies, I watched Noroi, that's probably pronounced completely wrong, The Curse. This is a Japanese movie. I watched this because it's in the documentary sort of format, found footage / documentary, which I'm a massive fan of. This follows I think he's a journalist, sorry, a documentary filmmaker. There's unrelated paranormal activity. They all seem to be around this, it says it here, ancient demon called Kagutuba. And basically anyone associated seems to meet a grisly end. This guy is following around the whole story, where it started, where it's gone to, where it's going to go to next. And he documents everything as he goes. Now, this was rated as being absolutely amazing, one of the best found footage movies, which I didn't find. I did enjoy it, I thought it was good. Is it on the same vein as things like, I've said before, Asian movies when it comes to creepiness just outdo us every time. But is it sort of as creepy as the original Ring? Ju-on, the Grudge, obviously Japanese versions, Japanese original should I say? No. It is worth a watch, it's interesting, it's entertaining, but it's not amazing. It's not, you must rush out and see this right away. I give it a 2.5 out of 5. So we're on to March. You can see why I didn't do a video that month. So on the 2nd of March I watched Behind Her Eyes. No, I didn't. I was watching that over several nights. This is a series on Netflix. It's a British series. This is a series about a woman who gets involved with a man who happens to be married. She doesn't know at the time. And she actually makes a friendship with this man's wife, not on purpose, it just all seems to happen completely accidentally. And she's continuing this friendship with the wife, all the while things are very awkward with the husband, the person she sort of had a fling with. This is a very stereotypical sort of like drama almost, which is okay. I'm not a big lover of things like soaps and, you know, just daily life and all that kind of thing. And I'm wondering, why is this getting such good reviews? And then we reach the last couple episodes. What makes this series is the ending, is where we go, is things turning from completely normal to that little bit otherworldly. I'm not going to give anything away about what happens, but the ending was really, really good. And I got 3/4 of it. As you know, when you get closer to something and just as it's about to reveal, you're like, oh my god, this is going to happen. Well, that happened, but the very last thing that happened I didn't see until it was happening in front of me. And just as it was about to reveal and show, it's like, oh my god, they've done this. And they had. And if you've seen it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I thought, brilliant, loved it. So yeah, Behind Her Eyes, if you're willing to sort of put up with, I don't know, I think it's a 6-part series. If you're willing to put up with 4 parts, it's pretty much just, let's just say, a bit Fatal Attraction type thing. And you're prepared to wait for a really satisfying climax, check out Behind Her Eyes on Netflix. The next evening I started Murder Among the Mormons. I actually haven't watched any more of this than 1 episode because I find it was one of those documentaries that just goes too much into the nitty, the tiny detail, and I'm getting bored. This is actually a documentary, a true life documentary about a guy within the Mormon church who is a forger, and he forges documents, and he forged one document that actually rewrote the whole history of how the Mormon church came to be founded. So obviously this one was gaining massive attention. They were comparing it to older established documents to sort of check its validity, which it completely seemed to check out. Tiny spoiler, the documents they were checking it against were previous forgeries of this guy. But basically that's a tiny nth of the story. This actually leads to murder. But that side of things is barely touched on at the start of this. Maybe, yes, I need to persevere and watch more, but it's going too much into detail, which is just minuscule. I'm not finding interesting. But basically it's about this forger, what he forged, how it affected the Mormon church, and how it eventually led to murder. So you might find that interesting. I started it and it's a bit slow going at the minute, I have to say. So the next evening I watched Trial by Fire. I really enjoyed this one. I'm not going to put that up on the screen because when I pre-recorded this a few days ago, there's a massive spoiler in the synopsis of this movie. Don't read anything about this movie is what I will recommend to you to do. Obviously if you want to, go ahead and read, but this is a true story. This is a story about a man who, he's sort of like, people see him as a bit common, as a sort of bit hickish. He lives with his wife and 3 young children. They're very poor. She works, he doesn't. He's at home with the kids. They're sort of represented as arguing a lot. There's a bit of physical violence there both ways, between him and her. And there is a fire at the home, and unfortunately all 3 children are killed. Now this isn't a spoiler, this is the actual basis of where we start the movie. And the husband is actually blamed for setting the fire. So this movie covers the trial, it covers the fallout, it covers everything that happens. It goes much more in depth than that, but for me to tell you where it goes would be telling you spoilers that are big spoilers. Do not read anything. I actually paused when I started watching this to go for a wee. That's too much information. But when I paused it, it came up on the screen like a little blurb about what the movie was about, and basically I knew what was going to happen. So Trial by Fire, trust me, it's a really good movie. Check it out. I give it 4 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed it. As I say, I'm not going to go any more into detail, but it's worth a watch, especially given that it's true. So on the 5th, right, I started watching this a couple of days ago. I'm still actually watching it now, so I can't rate it just at the moment. Your Honour, it's just, I think it's on Sky One, but I get it in the UK on Now TV. This is obviously Bryan Cranston of Breaking Bad fame, who can do no wrong in my eyes. He is a judge, a very important high-up judge, and his son does something, and he mistakenly tries to cover this thing his son does, and everything is just unravelling. It's major. There are people involved who really did not want to mess with. It's quite similar. He's quite similar to Walter White in this, in that he's very straight-laced, he's very normal, and he has to resort to maybe not being the best version of himself to get by, very much like Walter White. So it's really good at the moment. I think we've watched 5 episodes. I think there are 10 in all, and it's really, really good. So how far would you go to save your child? So check it out. Then the next evening I watched 2 movies. First off, the incredible Bert, Wonderstone. Now, I hadn't heard of this movie, and I wish I could remember which YouTube channel I was watching. If it was you, put it below. You know, let people know that you recommended this, and I had never heard of it, and I was really shocked that I hadn't heard of a movie that had this cast in it. Steve Buscemi, who I love, Steve Carell, who I love, Jim Carrey, not as big a fan of, I have to admit, although in this he was amazing. This is a movie about a washed up magician, Steve Carell, and his sidekick, his side magician, Steve Buscemi. The wigs are just glorious in this. And they work for like a big hotel chain as the entertainment on the evening. Times are moving on. We have a new magician, Jim Carrey, who is very much in the same vein as David Blaine, that kind of thing. And he's changing the face of magic from card tricks and, you know, the sleight of hand and sort of illusions like David Copperfield would do. And he's sort of bringing it into more intense kind of things that are like almost what your body can tolerate type stuff, like David Blaine did, obviously. But the character Jim Carrey plays is so over-exaggerated, and to me it felt like it was just taking the piss out of David Blaine. But this movie is about the whole, how they interact with one another. It's about the relationship between Steve Carell and Steve Buscemi. They've been lifelong friends. Is what they do going to remain popular? Is what Jim Carrey does going to be the new thing? Can their old-fashioned kind of magic possibly like survive? Also, Olivia Wilde's in this. My husband has a thing about Olivia Wilde. He never knows actresses' names unless it's someone like Sandra Bullock or someone massive. Oh, is that Olivia Wilde? So Olivia Wilde's in it. She is as beautiful and stunning as she always is. She is the sidekick, sort of like the... No, I'm not even going to tell you any more than that. Olivia Wilde's in it. So yeah, incredible Bert Wonderstone. If you want something that's just going to entertain, that's really easy to watch, that have just people in it that everyone loves, check out Incredible Bert Wonderstone. I cannot believe I'd never heard of this before, but yeah, I watched it and I did like it. So on the same evening I watched Triggered. I can't remember what this is on. Is it Shudder? I apologise, I can't remember what this one's on. This is a quite nice little horror movie actually about, so I'll read what it says here. 9 friends, all harbouring a dark secret, go camping in the woods. After a wild night of partying, they wake up with suicide bombs strapped to their chests. This is kind of like that movie that was done in the 80s, where they had something strapped around them. If Kermit's Ghost is watching this, he will know exactly what I'm talking about, and it counted down the whole way through, and then eventually it was going to, I can't remember, something about lock, can't remember. All with varying times on the countdown clock. They decide to work out how to disarm the bombs or find help. Until they find out, they can take one another's time by killing each other. So this has obviously been set up by someone with a bit of a grudge against this group. And this group are being tested as to the greatness of their friendship, I suppose. And if you keep seeing me look down, I keep having to touch this to prevent the screen recorder switching off on me. They discover inadvertently that if they kill someone, they get that person's time. And at the end, the person that's left with the most time is the only person that lives. Everyone else's thing blows up when their time runs out. That's basically the premise. That's what's happening here. I'll not go into any more than that because you don't really need to know any more than that. It's never going to like win awards. It's never going to be really taxing on your brain. It's never going to be, oh my god, that's completely novel and different. But it's an entertaining enough, easy to watch horror. So yeah, Triggered. And lastly, right, this one. I'm probably going to rant a bit about this. I apologise. So I saw this reviewed on a channel called Lost in the Rail. It's a channel I've subscribed to relatively recently, and they reviewed this with another movie. Now this, my ears did prick up about this because the guy that on the channel that was talking about this said this film is getting a lot of flack at the moment. Now obviously my ears prick up because a lot of people are saying it's man-hating and it's over feminist agenda, blah blah blah. So let me just switch that off. You don't need to keep that on at the moment, so I get rid of that. So he said that it was getting a lot of complaints, so I think, right, okay, but he also said, I think the people that are complaining haven't actually sat down and watched the movie, so they don't really know what they're talking about, and he was coming from a viewpoint of he didn't feel that way and he enjoyed it. So I agree completely with his thoughts. This movie is about a young girl at high school. She is your typical average student, nothing special. She's not a standout person, she's not loud, she's just normal. And her mother, she finds out that her mother, when she was at school, was quite the rebel. She was a punk, she was into female rights, She basically protested anything, and she actually said at one point, I was a little shit, I protested anything. But she finds a suitcase full of her mum's stuff, like music she liked, which just sounded for all of my life like Juliette Lewis, the music that it played. And she discovers like a burning passion in herself. And there was this essay that she had to write. I'm not telling you the whole story, this is just laying it out for you. You had to write about something that was very important to you. So this is what got her thinking about women's rights. So basically we have a high school, we have a girl, she makes a zine. If you don't know what a zine is, it's where she makes up a little magazine herself, photocopies it loads of times, puts it in the girls' bathroom and people start to read it. Now this takes off in her school and a lot of the girls start to read it, and the status quo at the school shifts somewhat. Now it has been said that this is a man-hating movie. Now I don't feel that's the case, because we do have guys in it that aren't that way, that are decent. We have a love interest that's a thoroughly nice, decent, lovely chap that's brave, that stands up for himself, that stands out with his own viewpoints. But it does represent a certain side of society that if you as a woman watch this, you will recognise everything from being patronised to be told how to pack your bags at a supermarket by packers just because you might not know what will squash what, whereas the man doesn't get any of that. People feeling that they can touch you and put their hands on you, you know, like in a patronising manner. Basically being accused of being a lesbian because you're not interested in a man, or being a stuck-up cow for the same reason. It basically does talk about all the things that girls go through in high school and all the things that are seen as acceptable. It does then take a more serious sort of dip near the end of the movie, which I won't go into, but it's a movie representing what young girls go through. It's as simple as that, and that's what it's meant to do. It's not meant to diss on men, it's not meant to say men are all arseholes, it's not meant to say that all men are this way. It's meant to show men that maybe don't realise how it is or what it's like, how it can be being a girl, because they maybe don't see half of the things that happen to women. They don't see, like in this school, and this is, I watched this with my husband, and as we're watching it, I was able to tell him instances in my life where every single one of the things happened to me that had happened in the movie, like where, and this will probably surprise you, in school there's a list that came out every year where they would rank the girls, most bangable, best ass, etc, etc. They were all insulting and some people would say flattering, but the girls don't really want to be rated best ass and most bangable, but basically massive long list. Some of them were really offensive, like against the girls, but I actually worked in a workplace in my early 20s with people that would rate in appearance the girls from best to worst, and thought that that was an acceptable thing to do in the workplace. There just seems to be something that if you're a woman, that how you look is the only thing that's important about you, that if you complain you're a feminist, you should be complimented, you shouldn't be offended. And I'm not talking about these things where, how dare you hold a door open for me, you know, I can do it myself, because I'm not that kind of person. To me that's taking it too far, because someone holding a door open for you is manners. And I would hold a door open for a person coming behind me regardless of their gender. I'm not one of these sort of like man-hating, you know, a man doesn't know what to do or what to say, and that's represented by the lad in the movie. It's like, he doesn't know if he can tell the girl that she can go first, because that might be seen as, you know, am I being polite or am I being sexist? He's not sure whether to kiss her because he's like, am I coming on too strong? So it does represent the male thinking also, which is really difficult for young lads to know what's right and what's wrong. To me, films like this do unfortunately need to be made to show the younger generation certain things that maybe historically have always been the case and they think is acceptable but actually isn't. But I'm just hoping that this movie actually makes people think, and makes people think, you know what, I don't have a right to put my hands on a girl when she hasn't asked me to. In our school it was a game to go up and twang girls' bra straps from the back, pull them back as far as you could and let them. And some of you are probably sitting laughing at that. It's not funny to a young teenage girl that's very insecure and paranoid about her body, has just started wearing a bra and doesn't want the whole world to know or not to know. You know, it's just little things like that, you know, have respect for other people. And if a woman complains about something that they feel offended by, don't accuse them of like chucking their dummy out of the pram or being oversensitive, or oh, listen to her always whinging, or oh, she's a feminist. If women have to be feminists to get people to realise that we're equal, and I have a young son and I try to teach him that we're all different, but we're all equal. We all have different strengths. Yes, some women may be better at some men than some things, and likewise some men may be better than some women at some things. We all have our strengths, but it doesn't mean one sex is stronger than the other. But it's trying to sort of teach your kid. It's a landmine today with all the different things that we have to be aware of. So yeah, I've banged on too long about Moxie. I just wanted to address the fact people are saying it's man-hating. It isn't. It does represent both sides of things. I feel very well. If there are issues that boys go through, yeah, by all means that should be represented. But for once, it's nice to see things that are sort of taken as the given or the norm or acceptable actually being pointed out as no, that's actually not acceptable. I don't think this movie will be very popular with most young men, with most men generally, to be honest. There will be some, and that's not me saying all men, just most men don't want to sit down and watch a romantic film, which is what this is. It's something maybe you could watch with your girlfriends or your wives, but it's something that is just a side of things I would love people, you know, show this in schools. Let high school kids see this. Let high school kids see what really they should be thinking about, you know, what they shouldn't be rating girls on best ass, most bangable, or whatever else was on the list. But, you know, disrupt the status quo. That's what this movie is about. This scene and what follows basically disrupts the entire status quo at the school, and I'm all for that. So yeah, that's what I have watched in the last 2 weeks. I know this one's a little bit longer than usual, me banging on about Moxie, but how it's got complaints I will not understand. So I look forward to speaking to you next week. Over and out from Lisa Loves.